Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Draw with T. Today we are continuing on with drawing the Duhrogh people and maybe a couple of the Siohg, because as these pages go on, I think I kind of wander between them, trying to find some solutions for the Duhrogh by drawing the Siohg. If you haven't seen the other episode, it's just the one before this, so go tune into that if you want to see some more concept art of these guys. Right now I'm starting off by attempting to draw Kaya, which is kind of the main character of the Duhrogh, well, one of them that we see in my story, Calasmere. The Duhrogh and the Siohg are a fantasy race that are connected to a story I'm writing if you're new here. I tried drawing Kaya, is now what I'm calling her. It didn't go so well, so I kind of took a step back and started developing the race. Now here things start getting a bit wild as I start getting a little bit more gestural, drawing a little bigger, at least for this one. Kind of just pushing the design in other directions. Since I don't normally draw masculine forms or older characters, I decided to just go in that direction and see what I could come up with, see how I could enhance the aging process, because one of the things with this race is as they age, they get more spiky, more tree-like. So for the Duhrogh, that means more crystalline forms and branches kind of growing out from their shoulders and their head, and I have to figure out how does that work, and how are their ears, because I had seen some sort of elf-like characters where their ears were kind of more like a satyr's or a horse or something, where they kind of would emote, and I thought that was a cool idea, but not one I really think applies to the Duhrogh so much. It's just a little bit too whimsical for them. They're kind of a dour race. And here I'm kind of playing with the idea of these sort of cheek spikes, and as I started drawing, this race started getting these sort of markings on them, and I kind of like them. I kind of imagine them sort of glowing, or just sort of not adhering quite to normal lighting. So they might not glow so much as just be really vivid and visible. Not quite glowing, but I guess sort of shining, if that kind of makes sense. Just, I don't know, in that fantasy way where you just really notice these sort of neon type stripes. I guess kind of like maybe a little bit like black lighting. Not sure. It's something that'll be developed a little later on. And here I'm now attempting to draw a very, very old Duhrogh. Is this how, do they look demonic, kind of like this? Do the horns grow really big? A little bit of a spoiler, I kind of imagine that each and every one of them is quite individualistic, so you might get some that really grow these horn type growths, and then others that, look a little bit more tree-like, some that don't really have very big protrusions at all, but, their skin becomes very bark-like, and then others, kind of like what I'm about to draw here, where it's just, they're all spikes, and you can't really see their mouth or their facial expressions as they get just that old, and everything, their skin starts turning to bark. Now I don't know if their skin actually turns to actual bark, but I do like the idea of them kind of stiffening up with age. Every movement is a little bit of an effort. You hear that sort of the creaking of wood as they move. I kind of like that idea, especially for when they reach that very late period in their juvenile life, that moment before they just kind of put down their roots and they're a tree. They become a tree. Now this is kind of getting close to the point where I started doing something a little different with their ears, and I started... because they're based on elves, I do kind of want them to look a little bit elf-like. I want people to look at them and associate a little bit of those elf-like features with them, that they're long-lived, they're very lithe-looking and fast and just kind of a human but foreign. So I do like those sort of pointed ears, but then the ears started to evolve to have, multiple tines or points. And in some of the earlier concepts I've done, the ears are actually seem to be made out of like a crystal, and that crystal kind of extends down the jawline or up the head. There I was just kind of quickly exploring the tonality of the eyes. Do I want it white pupils or black pupils, and how much contrast do I want with the black sclera? Is it the white part of the eye? I believe it's the sclera. I could be wrong. I don't know much about my eyes, to be honest. Well, eyes in general. Now here I start exploring just little doodles, after having drawn everything that I had. I think at this point it was 3.5 pages. I started exploring 2 of the main characters that are going to be, well, not main characters, but side main characters that are both Duhrogh, and how I can make them look similar because they are related, but also different. Here I'm now drawing Scath, which is sort of the most villainous character, honestly, in Calasmere. He's not the big bad evil guy. He actually serves the big bad evil guy, but what makes him evil in my mind is that he actively enjoys hurting people. And that's his thing. That's what he's in it for. He just wants to hurt people and watch the world burn, which is probably the most destructive thing that any of the characters wants in terms of their motivations. Even the other villains, they have something in mind. They're working towards something, what they believe is a better world. And here Scath is, he just wants to destroy everything. And then after I drew some pictures of Scath and his mask and trying to reconcile that design with adding horns and stuff, which weren't part of his design before, I kind of went back to just coming up with ideas, trying to explore how I could give them, spiky hair, but also longer hair. Like, how do I combine that sort of spiked look that, that maybe their hair is also crystallizing with it being a little longer and not just having everybody have this sort of short, spiky hair. Because, I want to be able to explore a lot of designs and come up with a lot of, NPC type characters or, just background characters without them looking too similar. But also I want them to look like they all belong to the same race. I kind of like what's happening with the portrait on the left there. Not the one that I was currently drawing, but the one to the left of that. The one on the right is alright, but I don't think adding the horns really did anything to him. And with this last one, I'm exploring sort of the, possible asymmetry with them. Maybe not all of them are symmetrical. It's just a very, very quick doodle. But don't worry, we're not done yet. I'll be drawing 2 more pages for you, but before we get to that, I just want to quickly zoom in here and show you guys what I've done. Alright. And then just a quick reference back to the other ones. This is what has been done so far. Time to add more after smudging the page. So this page, I started feeling like all the designs I was doing were becoming very homogeneous, looking very similar. So I decided to take a step back and find some of the references I liked the most and just straight up basically draw what was there. Understand what it was that was happening there and, see if I could teach my hand how to take that, assimilate it, and put it into my style. Because the problem with these is they're not 100% what I was looking for, and they're in a little bit more of a serious style than what I'd like. Now, I really like this drawing here. It's not my own. It's my redrawing of somebody's drawing, but I like how the leaves form the hair. Also, I really liked how this character seemed to have multiple ears that were sort of made out of leaves. So that was what I was paying attention to here, and how the forms on the face, I don't know if those are actually leaves just lying on this character's face, or if they're like tattoos or patterns, but that's what I really liked. I liked that look a lot. And here I found like a burnt sort of dryad character that I did edit this one a bit. I think I added some more jaggedness to the jaw. And then I can't remember, I think maybe I made it a little bit more crystalline when it was more tree-like. I'm not quite sure, but the modifications were pretty light, to be honest. Yeah, I think I added those details of the jaw, the crystal, and all that. That was more me than the actual art. But here I really like the spiky ear and just the lack of hair, but also just how the branches were. They were cut short. Which was, just kind of just a very interesting shape. And I liked that. I felt like that was, very, very close to what I wanted to do with the Duhrogh. This sort of, they are tree people, but they're not prosperous tree people. They're kind of past their prime, it's not like a leafy green forest anymore. It's a little bit more dried out, a little bit, I don't know, it's quite hard to explain, which is probably why I'm having a bit of difficulty drawing them as a race. Now, I believe this one that I'm drawing is kind of a hybrid of something I saw and then also my own art, because I think I cartoonized this one quite heavily, but I did steal the leaf hair, I believe. I think the face might have been my own kind of idea, and I wanted to see if this would work, if doing like a really cartoony face with a concept that I liked would work. So here I'm just kind of taking my time making this very toony type face. I kind of decided this race was going to be kind of typical elven in, very lean faces and all that. But, what would they look like if they had leaf hair? And this is kind of an interesting character I've drawn here because I'm giving them leaf hair, which I believe is more Siohg than Duhrogh, but I've given them Duhrogh eyes, so not really sure what I was doing, but I think I was just trying to figure out the leaf hair, and yeah. Also, I decided to give this one 2 leaf-like ears, which began something in later ones, where I started giving them different numbers of ears, and I like that. I like that. Some people are gonna get upset because every race should have, humans only have 2 ears, and no animal has a different number of ears from each other. Somebody's gonna get upset about that. Somebody's gonna get shook. But they're going to accept the fact that this race has leaf hair, which I always find immensely funny. Like, you see somebody draw an elf and, they're moving faster than the speed of light, but what upsets you is that their hair is pink and that's unnatural. But you're willing to accept that elves could exist moving faster than the speed of light. I don't know, it's interesting. Also a little annoying sometimes when, people will accept every part of your cartoon except one little bit. And then it's just like, well, why that bit? Why has that got something up your craw? I don't know. But, whatever. It's cartoons. I can do what I want. So if one of them has 6 ears and another one has 4 ears and one has 2 ears, deal with it. They've got branches growing out of their head and they don't die, they turn into trees. There's much more interesting questions at hand to ask. Now this one here I think is purely my design, but I don't quite remember. It's probably a smash-up of a few. I do quite like that one. That's sort of the typical look that I'm imagining for them, where they just sort of, there's a meld between, a humanoid appearance and this sort of tree-like appearance, but it's not straight up tree-like. It's kind of black and, crystalline, a little smoother. This one here is perhaps a little bit more Siohg. It's a little bit more branch-like. And again, I'm just kind of pushing it and seeing, the levels of change that I can do. And then here I do a very interesting little quick one, where instead of having all these protrusions, I make it a little bit more smooth, but also skull-like. So kind of like bark is forming over their skin in kind of a protective armor, and, that's, imagine that being more bone-like, but the actual protrusions being very small, kind of manifesting more like a chitinous shell coating them rather than these sort of, big old protrusions. And here's just a quick detailed look at this page before I move on to the next and the final page. And you can probably tell that I drew this at a slightly later date. I think I actually drew most of these in the same day, or well, these 2 pages I believe were drawn in the same day. I might have drawn more than that. I can't quite remember, but I did take a break and then I came back and I sat down and I continued to draw from other people's artwork. Here I saw a hairstyle I really liked, and I call it the swoosh. Kind of reminds me of how toothpaste looks on a toothbrush in those commercials they show you. And it's not really a hairstyle I have in my mental library, and I thought, well, let's draw that, let's explore it, because I feel like that's something that could be a thing amongst these people, just because I wanted to get it out of my mind that being elves, they would have long hair, in that classic Lord of the Rings style. Especially for the Duhrogh, they were shaping up to have these sort of short, spiky haircuts, and I didn't have many short, spiky haircuts in my repertoire, so I thought to explore this, and I think it actually turned out really, really well. I'm actually very happy with how this one turns out. I quickly, changed the character up, made it female on accident, added some weird markings, just kind of changed the proportions of some stuff. Yeah, and then I spent entirely too long on this drawing. I was tired when I did this, and I was having a lot of fun, and I was kind of tired of constantly drawing these sort of doodly little scribbles. So I decided, well, I didn't really decide, I just kind of accidentally began bringing some color in and finishing up this little doodle. You know, this could be a very interesting character, you know, I have to remember that if I am in need of kind of a rebellious Duhrogh character, actually. You know, this is one primed to be ready to be used. I also kind of like how it's sort of an autumn-colored character. I hadn't really thought of bringing the seasons into the characters, although it was something I did mind map, you know, like maybe they start off in spring, they move to summer, and, you know, near the end of their life, they appear like winter. So, you know, their leaves, if they have any, fall off, and they're like a tree about to sleep or something. Okay, I guess it's the day of Premiere Pro continuously crashing on me. Unfortunately, I lost some very, very good audio, and I can't quite remember what I was saying, so bear with me as I try to reconstruct what I was talking about. So yeah, I think it'd be cool if they aged by seasons, but it wasn't something I really explored here, but maybe going forward, and that might be more of a Siohg thing than a Duhrogh thing. Now, at about this point, I was quite tired of sketching. I don't remember why. I was just very tired, so beyond that first colored doodle I did, everything else was kind of a quick thing phoned in, just so I kind of had this page sort of finished. I think by this point I was just ready to move on. I don't remember how late it was in the day, but yeah, there is some cool stuff happening with that image in the upper right with the strange sort of antennae thing. I think that's kind of cool. By this point I was just kind of exploring, you know, the sort of extra ear thing, and then I was kind of sort of attempting the hair swoosh thing, but I mean, with that drawing right there, I pretty much failed. I think at this point it was just kind of winding down and repeating some earlier stuff that I had done, and just, I don't know if I would call it internalizing the concepts, but I was just sort of drawing it, you know, because I hadn't, other than, I basically decided that I liked the idea of them having multiple ears, you know, as an option, and then I didn't really draw much of them with that. So here, you know, I was just kind of quickly just scribbling out anything. Sometimes, you know, you wind up, or you don't wind up, you warm up for doodles in drawing, and then sometimes I wind down, which is just, you know, scribbling out stuff, filling up the last of the page. This is kind of an interesting doodle here with all these sort of spikes and the multiple ears. Here's a very strange looking one that I did. Kind of going back to that whole, you know, skeletal look of when they get older. And I don't know if that's going to be something. Maybe their transformation through the phases of their life happen more abruptly in stages, and maybe it's more gentle. I'm not entirely sure. That's something for later me to decide. I do kind of like this hair swoosh is okay, and I'm happy that it was like 100% me doing it. But that's all, folks. That's kind of it. These are the pages that I did. The next drawing that I'll be doing will be of Kaya. So stay tuned for that. If you liked this episode, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good day, night, or evening, or whenever you're watching this.